Talktainment Radio Worldwide Sound. Talktainmentradio.com. We give you a reason to come. The world's greatest radio. We give you a reason to stay. Radio, the way it should be heard. You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guest and not necessarily those of Talktainmentradio.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
This is The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on Talktainmentradio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
Good morning, and welcome to Talktainmentradio.com, the world's greatest radio. You are in touch with the compensatory concept. I am your co-host of the show. My name is Mr. Bobby, and this is radio the way it should be heard. Our guest, as usual, will be Neely Fuller, and he is here to address your concerns or questions. We want you to pay close attention to everything that is being said. And if you would like to get in contact with the show, you may do so by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com. And if I have a chance to read it, I will. I have several of them to read, and they have been outstanding to read. Before I get to Mr. Fuller, I'd like to make this comment. Last week I mentioned that I had an epiphany upon what Mr. Fuller has been talking about, and I wrote this today. I simply said that racism is a parasite that attracts itself or attaches itself to a host solely takes control of all systems of that host so that it may look like what it was created to be. But on the inside, it is a deadly and waiting to affect or infect the next person with its contagious self. You can't kill racism with laws, and you can't kill it with prisons. You can't kill racism with living in separate neighborhoods or by just being a good person. But you can kill it completely with the fire of justice. Justice is the antidote. Why? Because justice destroys the yoke of racism completely. And justice is guaranteeing that all people get treated equally and that those who need the most help gets it. We're not going to protect or protest racism out. We're not going to boycott it out. We're not going to legislate it out. War is not going to do anything but get innocent people killed. Holding up signs and singing is not going to kill racism. And getting mad or upset or rioting is not going to do nothing but produce the same result that we have been seeing for a long, long time. But the fire of justice will burn up and destroy racism completely so that a new foundation will be pure for the planting of the seeds of righteousness, and that will produce justice for all. Let me introduce to some, and let me present to others, my good friend, Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr., the author of the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, a textbook workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of racism. Mr. Fuller, good morning, and how are you?
Good morning, and I'm still learning.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You know, at the beginning of the book, and I've been in conference with a lot of people this week, and I'm of the conclusion, because a lot of questions were asked, why does Mr. Neely Fuller, why does he repeat the same thing over and over and over. Why does he stay in the lane of just talking about racism? And as I pondered that question, I said, well, for one, listen to the show. But the thought came to me, Mr. Fuller, that in your opening statement that you made or was penned in 1971, if you do not understand white supremacy, racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. And I came on of the opinion that most people really do not really understand that, do not embrace it, because if they did, I think that after a while, they would begin to understand what it is and how it works, and then do what you have suggested for us to do, which is implement a system of justice. Your comment on that?
Well, for one thing, that was a question, and all problems are solved through the process of questions and answers. So the question was, why do I keep talking about racism? It's because racism is the biggest problem. That's the answer. You start with the big problem, and then the little problems become easier to solve. That's the biggest problem. Now, if there's some other problem that I don't know about that's bigger than the problem of racism, then I will talk about that. I haven't found that problem. But if someone, some of the people who are thinking about these things, including the person who asked the question, if they have discovered that there's some problem bigger than the problem of racism, and that is what I should be talking about, then that is what I will talk about. In fact, I will push this aside to the secondary or the third category or the fourth category or whatever category it falls in, and go for the biggest problem and then work back to the smaller problem. But I haven't found a bigger problem other than the problem of racism. That's why I wrote the book. Everything about the book is about racism in the form of white supremacy. Mm-hmm. That's why I keep talking about it in answer to this question. I keep talking about racism because you can't solve any other problem, major problem, without solving the problem of racism in the form of white supremacy. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's the premise. Mm-hmm. You can't solve, I'm going to repeat that. You can't solve. It's out of the question. You're not going to solve any other problem. And everybody has problems, everyday problems, all kinds of problems. You're not going to solve any of those problems if you have color in your skin without first solving the problem of white supremacy.
Mm-hmm. And as you say that, now I already know the answer, but I was asked by several people, well, why does he keep saying that all problems are solved through a system of justice? And I said, well, tune into the show and call him or email me, and he will answer, or he will address that question. But just for the sake of somebody asking that, why do you say that all problems are solved through a system of justice?
Because racism would be no problem at all. It's a problem if it didn't produce non-justice. Racism is about guaranteeing that people of color will be mistreated. Now, if you have people being mistreated, you can't have justice. That's what justice means. Somebody is not being mistreated. No people are being mistreated. That's what justice means. Non-justice means that the people are being mistreated. So you're either being mistreated or you're not. Can't have it both ways. Mm-hmm. You're either being mistreated or you're not. So you're going to eliminate mistreatment of non-white people by the people who have engineered a system that's designed to mistreat people who have color, people of color, people classified as non-white, and that's in the form of a system called white supremacy. Now, that makes a problem. Mistreatment is a problem. People all over the world, nobody wants to be mistreated. Babies don't want to be mistreated. But if you have a system set up that's guaranteed that people are going to be mistreated, and one of the worst things, mistreated on account of they have color in their skin, then you need to get rid of that system, because it will contaminate everything that everybody is trying to do that is of constructive value.
Yes, sir. Let's see here. I have a question from Mike, and I'm not going to use his last name, but Mike is from Atlanta. He asked me to ask you this, Mr. Fuller. He says, in what ways can economics be used against the system of racism, white supremacy? For example, boycotting products or using group economics to support the controlling of politicians to get what we need done via congressional means, or et cetera. Thank you, Mike in Atlanta.
Well, you can try it, and if it works, keep doing it. But then, if you boycott, if you can get enough people to boycott, but then here's what, the white supremacists, they know all about boycotts. And so what they have done now, I'm not sure that they can keep doing it, but what they have done in the past, they'll say, oh, you're going to boycott a product that I produce. You're not going to buy it. Okay, if you're not going to buy a particular product that I am producing, then you are evidently under the law of compensation. That means you're going to buy something else. Well, I'll just figure out that's something else that you're going to buy, and you won't be boycotting that. So I'll sell it to you, because you are not boycotting that other product that I produce, because I am the master of all products produced. See, that's what I mean by understanding white supremacy, how awesome it is, how big it is, how it covers everything, not some things, everything that has to do with what non-white people do in all areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Everything, not some things, everything. The white supremacists look and say, "Well, you're going to boycott cosmetic products." Okay, go right ahead. But if you want to fix yourself up and anything like that, it's not anything off to the side, off the football field, you might say, a place where you can go that I don't control, that I don't initiate, that I don't have complete power over. If it exists, and it exists on this planet, I got complete power.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the white supremacists are saying. Now, if you don't believe it, that's what they're always saying to us indirectly. They don't say it to our face because it's not necessary. They just sit back and say, oh, you're going to boycott cereals? Okay, that means you're going to eat something for breakfast, correct? All right. Whatever that is that you're going to eat, it's going to come from me anyway. So you're going to boycott food on my planet by not eating any food? Well, good luck with that.
You're listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. I'm your co-host, Mr. Bobby, exclusively on Talktainmentradio.com. That is radio the way it should be heard. Phone number to get in contact with the show for your question or brief comment, 1-877-932-9766. Or you can Gmail me, as many have, at 7mrbobby@gmail.com. And I will read it. May not be on today's program, but I will read it and have Mr. Fuller address it. If you'd like to get a copy of the book, and I strongly suggest that you do and then read it, it is the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, a textbook workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of racism, white supremacy. You can get that by going to producejustice.org. producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com. And there you will find a page where it gives you all the instructions on getting the book. And also there is an additional word guide. And Mr. Fuller, somebody asked me a question about the word guide, what it is and how does it work. Could you explain that?
Well, for one thing, you have to redefine some words. Like I have, or you can amplify what I call the pure definition of a word. I'll give an example. I talked about the word America on the last program. Now, a lot of people associate the word America with white supremacy. That's always a mistake because, first of all, it's not true. I'm going to say that again. Associating America, the word America, with the term white supremacy and or racism is untrue. Untrue according to whom? According to logic. America is a concept. It's an idea. What is that idea? The idea includes justice. As far back as I can remember, when people say America, they say, well, what is America? What exactly is it? Is it a place? Is it a person? Is it a spoon? Is it a football star? They say that a football star can be an All-American. Okay, well, if a football star is an All-American, what are the rest of the people that call themselves Americans? They are partial Americans, and if you have a partial American, what does a partial American look like? What does a partial American do? Since a football star is an All-American. See, that word has been kicked around all kinds of ways. The white supremacists know that. They understand that. You can make anything an American if you just want to. You can, a leaf on a tree. They say that Purple Mountain Majesty, that's American. Well, they have purple mountains, if you want to call them purple, are in Kenya, in Peru. Are they American? Well, maybe in Peru. Could be, because after all, a place called Peru is in what they call what? South America. Yet somebody in Peru might say, I'm trying to go to America. Well, somebody else might say, standing next to him or her, will say, you're already in America. You're in Peru, but you're in South America. Duh. So what does that word America really mean? It means really, in essence, and this is why I wrote it in the word guide, America, not only America, but Africa and Asia all have the same definition if you go by logic. And what is that definition? An American, first of all, is a person, not a mountain, not a valley, not an ocean, not a cloud, not a bird, even though they say that there's such a thing as an American eagle. That eagle doesn't know anything about that, hasn't gone through any kind of process that the eagle has agreed to, that the eagle became an American. Somebody called it that, evidently. So what, in essence, is an American? What, in essence, is an African? What, in essence, is an Asian? I say they're all one and the same, if they are to mean anything at all that you should pay attention to, and that is a person who practices justice. That's what I have in the word guide. That's what I mean by you look at a word, and then you study the word and all the ways it's used, then you come up with the best definition. Now, somebody might say, you can't go around making up definitions. All definitions are made up for every word that was ever produced. And definitions of words have changed. By whom? By whomever stepped forward to change them.
Yes, sir.
That's the whole history of words. I want to make that clear, because I used to think, oh, that word ain't, that's a word that doesn't exist, because that word is not in the dictionary. That word does exist if a person is using it. You can make up a word anytime. Anybody out here in this audience, I want to make this clear right now. It doesn't have to be in the dictionary, anybody's dictionary, or anybody's word guide, including mine. You can just make up a word right now, any word, and give it a definition and go around saying it, and that is what you might call a living word. Why? Because you came up with it. That's why. There are slang terms, like the word ain't at one time was a slang term. Now, it's still not considered proper English, but people still use it. It's just a way of communicating. That's all any word is.
Yes, sir.
So the word America means the same as the word justice. Okay. That's the only logical definition for it. Okay. And justice doesn't exist. Okay. Therefore, America doesn't exist yet.
Oh, okay. You're listening again to the compensatory concept on Talktainmentradio.com with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. And again, if you want to make a contribution to the show, you can by calling 1-877-932-9766 or 7MrBobby@gmail.com. We're going to go to the phone line. What line, Galen? Line number 1. Okay, you are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. What is your question, please?
Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller. I'm Tyreek from the Bronx. My question for Mr. Fuller is, seeing as how white supremacy plays such a major role in all aspects of life, how can black people go about increasing their economic power amongst each other, if that's possible?
Okay. Mr. Fuller?
Well, economic power, according to what I have written in the Word Guide and in the basic book, too. What is economics? Economics is the use of your time and energy. And that's what black people do have some control over. And one of the first things that black people should do, if you start talking about economics, I'm not even talking about money, because when we think about economics, we have been taught that economics is all about how money is moved around. No, economics, basic economics, is how you use your time and energy. So the white supremacists see to it that their victims use their time and energy to support white supremacy. We all support white supremacy because we are prisoners of war. And so far, we have lost the war. But we have lost all the battles in the war. You haven't really lost the war until you stop trying to win the war. Okay? So you're trying to replace the system of white supremacy with the system of justice. That should be the reason for our existence. Okay? So, your time and energy, economics being the use of your time and energy, the little time and energy that they allow black people to have when we are not, nose to the grindstone working every day, on a direct assignment from, either directly or indirectly, from the white supremacists. How do black people use their time and energy? Let's look at how we use our time and energy when we get a little time off. How do we usually use it, particularly in the northwestern hemisphere? We go looking for each other, and that is a huge problem right there. If you stop and think about it, the average black person, once they get a little, what you might call, time to yourself, after you fool around and do a little of this and do a little of that, wash the dishes or see to it that your clothes get to the laundry and all like that, then what is the next thing that the average black person does? Goes looking for other black people. Now, is that a problem? Yes, that's a huge problem. And I'm going to tell you why. Because when we go looking for each other, we don't have a constructive agenda. So that's why I put it in the code book. You are not supposed to make me or any person of color is not supposed to ever make contact with another person of color or with any person, including white people, unless we have a constructive reason for doing so. You've got to rack your brains and say, now, if I pick up this phone, this iPad and whatnot, and I'm going to make a phone call, is this phone call going to have a constructive outcome? Guaranteed. You got to think about that in advance. Now, if you can't pretty well, as best you can, come to the conclusion, this is going to be a very important call, very constructive. It's going to help somebody do something constructive, either myself or someone else, or the two of us together, or a group of us together. Is it going to have a constructive result? If it's not, if you can't really perceive why you're making this call, that you're just making it just so you want to talk, don't do it. Now, that's a simple thing, but that's going to be a very difficult thing for the average black person to do, particularly in the Northwestern Hemisphere, because we call it our black lifestyle.
Yes, sir.
And it is pure death, because that's what it usually ends up being. Because when we make contact with each other, the record shows that for the most part, because we are very toxic people, we are poisonous people, we spread poison. We got to face up to that. That's the truth.
Oh. All righty. Thank you for your call, Brother Tyreek from Brooklyn, New York. Thank you. Tarek from Brooklyn, New York. Thank you very much. Okay, let's go to the phone lines. What line, Galen? Line number 2. You are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. What is your question?
Yes, Mr. Fuller, how are you?
I'm still learning.
I'm always learning. I called you a while back about this same situation here, and now in light of everything that's going on in the media concerning black people dying and getting beat by the police and everything, in your book you state that white supremacy is in the time of refinement, okay, meaning they are supposed to be like stealth. They are supposed to, like, not be announcing themselves. Now, from what I see in the media and everything that's going on, they are showcasing themselves. That is not refinement, and that should be bad for business. Is that not?
Mr. Fuller?
That's true. They are trying to stay in the refinement stage. They don't want to go back. I mean, just like in the movie The Godfather, I usually use that as sort of a metaphor for the entire system of white supremacy, sort of an example. And it's like this character, Sollozzo, said, talking to Tom Hagen, the lawyer for the Corleones. He said, I don't like violence, Tom. It's bad for business. That's the reason I don't like it. Hey, we're supposed to have a smooth operation. Say, blood is a big expense, you know. So we got to settle these disputes among ourselves. I mean, and get this blood thing out of the way so that we can just do a smooth operation and everybody makes money. I mean, and everybody gets over on those black people up in Harlem that we're selling the drugs to, that we will be selling the drugs to. We want a smooth operation. We don't want no trouble. Now, I understand in what you call, quote, unquote, real life, that's a quote that's supposed to be, I believe, from Al Capone, who said, I don't want no trouble. Well, the white supremacists always say that. I don't want no trouble. I want a smooth operation. I want to run my plantations on a smooth basis. I don't want a whole lot of argument out of the slaves, or out of my co-workers, or out of my co-plantation owners. I mean, I want a smooth, nice, smooth, easy slavery operation with no trouble. Everybody happy. All the black people singing and dancing and playing banjos. And all of the people, the white women sitting around on the porches being fanned by their black servants. And everybody grinning and everybody happy. That's what I want. Every plantation owner, every white supremacist wants that. But right now they're out in the streets with guns. They don't like that. That's bad for business.
Talktainmentradio.com. Check us out on WCRS FM 8.3 Wednesdays and Sunday evenings. Blogs and podcasts are available. Download Talktainmentradio.com app to your cell or tablet. We go where you go. Radio the way it should be heard. More of your phone calls coming up next on Talktainmentradio.com.
Talktainmentradio.com is the premier internet radio platform offering 40-plus talk radio-style programs professionally produced, optimized for online distribution, featuring Columbus, Ohio on-air personalities. Talktainmentradio.com offers listeners diverse programming options covering topics such as arts and culture, love, life and relationships, technology, religion, paranormal activities, local and national politics, women's issues, alongside health and wellness. Listeners can access their favorite Talktainmentradio.com programs free of cost through the website. Download the TTR app to your cell phone and you can take us wherever you go. We have programs on demand to fit your schedule through our podcast. The address is Talktainmentradio.com.
Hello, I'm Lisa Stockdale from Senior Agenda, and I would like to encourage you to visit the Worthington Retirement Community here in Central Ohio. I've had the privilege of working closely with the staff and residents over at the Worthington for the past couple of years, and I can promise you they make a wonderful community. If you or a loved one are considering retirement living, you'll want to pay them a visit before you make your next move. When you choose to join the Worthington, you'll gain the peace of mind that comes from knowing that their independent retirement lifestyle simplifies your retirement living. They take care of the cooking, shopping, and cleaning so that you can focus on the things that are truly important to you. Plan to visit the Worthington today. They're conveniently located at 1201 Riva Ridge Boulevard in Gahanna, Ohio. You can call ahead to schedule a tour at 614-933-8640 or just stop in. Be sure to tell them Lisa sent you and enjoy your retirement living.
This show, A Conversation with Dawn Karima, has been nominated for an Indigenous Music Award, which is just such a great honor. Take a minute and please vote at aboriginalpeopleschoice.com or Indigenous Music Awards. You can just find it on Google. For this show, A Conversation with Dawn Karima, and my CD, The Stars of Heaven, for Best Gospel, and this show for Best Radio Program. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell everybody. Stop by and vote and tell them this is where great things happen.
Hey guys, let's play some video games.
This new dad plays video games with his sons, but the challenge feels like he's lifting a metric ton.
So many buttons.
His avatar just stares at the walls, twists and turns and somehow falls.
Help me!
He's tangled up in the controller's cords.
I just don't understand this crazy digital world.
Crazy, crazy digital world. Zeros and ones. But the love from his kids is totally apparent. Ooh. See, you don't have to be perfect to be the perfect parent.
You should have just played catch. You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of siblings in foster care will take you just as you are. For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Goodwill is a global social services enterprise and the leading nonprofit provider of job training programs and career services in the United States and Canada. To pay for its program, Goodwill sells donated clothes and other household items in more than 2,700 stores and online at shopgoodwill.com. Goodwill uses the revenue earned from these sales to fund job training, employment placement services, and other community programs. The goal of the campaign is to increase goods donations to Goodwill, inspire an emotional connection to the Goodwill brand, and to elevate preference for Goodwill.
It may be hard to believe, but people just like you are already saving money. FeedThePig.org makes it easy. Their simple savings plan teaches you how to start saving without going overboard. So you don't need to sell all your belongings and live in a commune.
These dungarees belong to all of us now, Tom.
You don't need to get a second job as a stuntman.
We need a new stuntman!
You just need FeedThePig.org. Don't get left behind. Get tips and tools at FeedThePig.org. Brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
This is a test to find out if you know it all when it comes to children. Name one of the leading killers of U.S. children age 1 to 13. What's the best way to protect children in a car crash? At what age and size should a child start using a booster seat?
Don't assume you know it all when it comes to car seats for your child. Go to safercar.gov/the-right-seat and know for sure. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
The United Independent Compensatory Code System concept by Neely Fuller is considered as one of the substantial and basic books for understanding and effectively countering racism. Neely Fuller will turn upside down everything you've heard and everything you think you know about racism and how it works. Call area code 202-484-5461. 202-484-5461.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers. I want the truth. You can't handle the truth. I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
Go ahead. Make my day.
You got the power.
Okay, welcome back to a second slice of the action. You're listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., heard exclusively on Talktainment Radio.com. I am the co-host, Mr. Bobby, and this is radio the way it should be heard. If you would like to get in contact with the show, you may do so by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com, and I will make every effort to try and get your question to Mr. Fuller so that he may address it. Got a question from Wayne. He's listening in Denmark, and it is 4:36 in the afternoon in Denmark, so thank you, Wayne, for listening. He says, Mr. Bobby, would you please ask Mr. Fuller about, quote, single-handedly solving the problem of the system of white supremacy, end of quote. I've heard him mention this before on another radio program. Regards, Wayne from Denmark. Mr. Fuller?
Well, by single-handedly, I don't know exactly what he means by that, but the entire book is addressed to the individual person. The concept is, if you solve the problems of each individual person, in this case, within the system of white supremacy, we mean the people of color. Solve the problems of each individual person. All the problems that that person has in say, in one day's time, or the next day, or the next day. Any problem that comes up. If you have a code for it, and you should have a code for everything that comes up, that's what I'm trying to produce. And I'm trying to get other people to think in terms of the code ideology. By code meaning, what is the best thing to do in every circumstance that comes up? Because the concept is, in this universe in which we all are part of, everything that comes up in the form of a problem has a solution. So you want to do the very best thing that a person can do or say in order to solve that problem, just as fast as that problem presents itself. Now, if you do that for each individual, then you have done it for all individuals. That's the concept. I think it's a mathematical concept that's correct. I think that's been proven. Solve the problems of each individual, and you solve the problems of all individuals. So I think that's what he means by single-handed.
Okay.
A lot of us think that, well, we have been trained to always think in terms of so-called having a maximum leader, that there's some person sitting up on a mountain somewhere, and we take all our problems to that person on that mountain, if we can climb the mountain, and we say, oh, there he is, or there she is. And so take our problems there and dump them at that person's feet, and then walk back down the mountain and wait. Now, that's what we have been trained to do, because that's how you train slaves, really. And that's how people become slaves. But when each individual knows what to do and say, and knows what not to do and say in every circumstance, that's right down to the people who are taking part in a demonstration. Know what to do and say. Know what not to do and say. Know whether to have a gun on you or not, or whether or not that's going to help you solve your problem, or whether or not that's going to get you killed. In other words, get a result that you wasn't anticipating. See, you should be able to anticipate the results.
Yes, sir.
Just like playing checkers or chess. You know how the outcome is, what the outcome is going to be before you even start.
Okay. We have a comment from Yadiah, if I pronounced it correctly, Y-A-H, Yah. Yeah, I like that. Dia, D-I-A-H. Yadiah. She says, Mr. Fuller, I love you like my father. But when you talk about white supremacy as if it is the only power in the universe, I have to disagree. Satan is the god of this world, 2 Corinthians 4:4 and Ephesians 2:2, planet Earth, not the white supremacists. They are only being used as a tool by Lucifer to do her handiwork. I know you're not a big religious person and may take scriptures not too serious, but there are things in there that just make it so real, such as prophecies. The white supremacists are deceived just like everybody else. They are just the ones Satan is using to do their mission. She is only given a period of time, and then she, along with the white supremacists, will be destroyed. We have to start calling on the name of Yahweh, not God, capital G, comma, God, small g, Lord, Elohim, etc., in order for him to hear our cries. Satan's time is almost up. I want to be in the kingdom. Praise Yahweh. That was a comment from Yadiah. You care to make a comment on that, Mr. Fuller?
Well, that's a religious matter. That comes under the seventh area of activity. And there are a lot of different religions, including tribal religions, scattered throughout the world. And throughout the world, even as we speak, people are slaughtering each other in the name of religion. One person saying, well, the Bible means this, the Bible means that. Another person says, no, that doesn't mean that. And if you say it again, I'm going to hit you in the mouth. Okay? So the next thing you know is you got to fight. Now, what the white supremacists have done, by whatever name you want to call the white supremacists, they have looked at all of the different religions as practiced by the people of color and say, I am going to trump all of their religions, and they are going to wind up doing what I say, even though many of them will say it will not always be this way. Well, the white supremacist says, well, we'll see about that. And so, in the meantime, what are you going to do? Because here's the white supremacist approach to all of black people's religions. Says, oh, yeah, you say it's not going to be this way all the time. Well, la-di-da. I'll go along with that. You say nothing stays the same forever, that my time is going to be short. Well, it's been a pretty long time for me. That's the white supremacist view. And you know what? You can sit around and you can talk about how long I got to do what I'm doing, and I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing as long as I can. And in the meantime, you are going to do what I say. And do you know something, you colored people? That's okay with me. If you tell me that I got 10,000 more years to do what I'm doing, that's okay. Even Adolf Hitler said, hey, all I want is 1,000 years. That'll do me. I call it the 1,000-year Reich. I mean, you know, and if every generation of white supremacists come along and say, hey, I'm going to get me another 1,000 years, you sign on for that, and you do absolutely nothing about what I'm doing to you every day, I'm kicking you around every day now. So now, but you on a waiting period. Okay. Because something is going to come along to change all of this. Okay. I'll sign on for that. Because they don't really care. They just want to do what they want to do when they want to do it. See, they don't care about the time limits and all like that. They don't seem to care much about anything. So they'll just go through doing it. Now, that comes down to what I have written. I have said, maybe we should kind of help it along to get rid of the evils that are going on. A lot of people have religions that require waiting. Okay, that's the only requirement. In fact, I heard of someone very prominent say one thing that they liked about Christianity is that you don't have to do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that there are no requirements in Christianity. You don't really have to do anything. You can do it if you want to, but if you don't want to do it, you're forgiven anyway.
Oh, wow. All right. Thank you, Yediah, for your comment there. You're listening to The Compensatory Concept, heard exclusively on Talktainment Radio.com. And that is radio the way it should be heard with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby, and if you'd like to get in contact with the show, you may do so by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com. Let's go to the phone lines. Line number three, you are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. What is your question?
Yes, good morning. I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. And my comment is to Mr. Fuller. Mr. Fuller, thank you. Thank you so much for your book. I have been doing my best to implement in my behavior those things that I have found in your book for years. And thus far, this is where I am with it. About 8 years ago, I cut off cable. I stopped all of my magazine subscriptions. This is in the area of economics and entertainment that I'm responding to. I don't buy any magazines like I used to. I don't buy movies, and I don't go to the movies. I went to one movie last year, and thus far this year I've been to one. I'm not buying any DVDs. I do my best to not watch much white supremacy TV, and I do look for alternatives, even though they're still under the structures. I'm finding other places where there is more information. In the area of law, I drive in the third lane, so I'm not doing anything to get a speeding ticket. I'm doing my best not to. I put ample money in the parking meter so that I don't get tickets and give money out that way. In the area of religion, I don't go to church, and I don't give away my hard-earned money through tithes, but I do give my money to people who I see that are in need. And I could go on and on. And I just want to say that it is for each person to implement in their behavior. The title of the book is Thought, Speech, and Action. Action meaning behavior. Behavior, the things we are choosing to do. And even though I'm not trying to do a quote-unquote, all of us, let's get together and boycott, in the end, it really, if there were at least another 3,000 people doing what I'm doing on a daily basis every day of their lives, it would make quite an impact financially on the system in small ways, because everything is added up, and you add up the pennies and you get to the dollars, etc. And so I just want to offer to you the thank you, and I'm going to continue to listen, and I hope that I have said something to inspire someone else. You have to take your actions on. You, each of us, we have to choose to do or not do. So thank you very much, Mr. Fuller.
Okay, thank you, caller, for your call. Mr. Fuller, you care to comment on the caller's call?
Well, the lady said what she was doing, and see, the criteria for everybody, in my opinion, and I think my opinion is based on logic, is to do the most constructive thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, now, that means you might have to change a few things or add a few things or subtract a few things, and that would apply to everybody, including myself. And you do this every day. You try to look around you and see what's going on and then say, what is the most constructive thing that I can do in this situation that I'm in? What is the most constructive thing that I can do? What is the most constructive thing that I can say? See, because everything is a matter of doing or saying or not doing or not saying.
Mm-hmm.
So you always want to do the most constructive thing, and that's what my entire work is based on.
Okay.
Just do the most constructive thing in any situation you find yourself in. Whatever works that has a constructive result, that's it.
Yes, sir.
There's nothing else there.
Nothing else.
Right.
Okay, from Travis via the Gmail, he says, good morning, Mr. Fuller. The only way to rid the world of racism is through justice. Understand what justice is and how it works, and you will discover, as I have and am still learning, that justice is the only way. Until you learn that, any questions you have or anything you think about, if justice is not involved in the conclusion, you will be like a hamster spinning around and around, going nowhere. Learn Dr. Fuller's compensatory definition of justice and ingest it and let it feed your essence until it sprouts growth of the foundation of the roots of truth. Water it with your journey, prune it with the shears of truth until it is able to stand against the foundation that the Creator has put in motion, and there you will find peace and rest for your soul, for the rest of your soul. Whoa. Okay, you care to make a comment on that?
Well, he mentioned justice a number of times, and he said apparently that he was making that the focus, and the compensatory definition for justice that I have made up, because there is no legal definition for it, was number 2. It's 2 parts. Number 1 is guarantee that no person is mistreated. That's in any situation you happen to find yourself in. The first order of business is anybody here being mistreated? If you're in a room with 10 people, you just ask that question. Is anybody in this room being mistreated? That's number 1. Number 2, is anybody in this room not getting the most constructive help that he or she needs? Now, everybody might hold up their hand on that one and say, well, I'm not getting the help that I need. Then you break it down and say, okay, it's 10 people in this room. Let's have everybody say what help they need. And then you start with the person that needs the most help.
Yes, sir.
That's the logical process. I mean, Miss Jones might need more help than Mr. Smith. So you start with Miss Jones. Well, it looks like Miss Jones has more problems than Mr. Smith. So we'll start with Miss Jones. Give her the most help. We're going to give everybody help, but we're going to start with the person that needs help the most. Constructive help, that is.
Yes, sir. Constructive help. Okay.
Right.
All righty. Let's go to the phone lines. Caller, line number 1. You are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. What is your question?
Hi, it's me?
Yes, it's you.
Oh, okay. Morning to everyone, and God bless you both. My first question would be what is the solution for collective unity, especially among our people?
Okay, collective unity, you say?
Yes, sir. And
okay.
Then the second question what I ask is, please give us the definition of racism and the solution. And keep up the good work and enjoy your show.
Okay, Mr. Fuller, you want to address that, please?
Well, that's kind of wide, but the procedure is something I've been talking about.
Yes, sir.
You know, on this program all day. I mean, so during this hour, and the procedure is make every contact a constructive contact. That's the collective right there. Sometimes we always say, we use this cliche term, well, black people just got to get together. Black people got to get together. Black people got to get together. Over and over again. We have lots of slogans, but we never put any ingredients in those slogans. Get together and do what? Get together how? Get together and say what? And what is going to be the constructive result when we, quote, unquote, get together? Just get together and run around in a circle and make a lot of noise? I mean, we can get together and do that. But then, why not look at it from this viewpoint? A very simple formula that we haven't even seriously tried. And that is the United Independent concept, which is what I've been talking about this entire hour so far. And that is, you make all contacts, every contact that you make, produce a constructive result. that means that gangbanging and stuff like that is out. That's not even considered. That's nowhere on the radar.
Yes.
Why? That doesn't produce constructive results. The whole history of it shows that. So why do it?
Yes,
I'm going to the demonstration in Ferguson, and I'm going to take a gun. Now, what's going to be the constructive result of you taking that gun? Because the gun is for shooting somebody. And if you shoot anybody, white or non-white, in Ferguson, do you think that's going to produce a constructive result? That's the question you should ask yourself before you put that gun in your waistband and go marching down the street. Duh. Stop and do some thinking.
Yes.
If you have to whip it out and start shooting, who are you going to shoot? How many times? Under what circumstances? And that's Act 2. That's Act 1. What are you going to do for Act 2? You just shot somebody. Now, that's Act 1. What's Act 2? See, that's what I mean by figuring out what's going to happen before it happens.
Yes, sir. Yes,
That's
sir.
something that black people are not known for. We always act first and then say, well, now, maybe I should have planned something a little bit different. You're right. You got that. But that's the procedure.
Okay.
Right. Make
All right.
every contact constructive and know that it's going to be constructive before you do it.
Okay.
Now, the other thing is the white supremacy. White supremacy is just mistreating people based on color.
Based on
And
color.
the white supremacists have set up a world system that so far has been successful in doing that. That's all it is.
That's all it is. Okay. Line number 2. What is your question for Mr. Neely Fuller Jr.?
Yes, sir. I have a question. I have a comment first.
Well, you know what? We're really short on time.
Okay,
so,
sure. Okay. Well, with the Supreme Court being really the engine that drives the car, and they have by them having lifetime appointments, do you see them? It would seem like it's incomprehensible for them to do make any significant changes to any laws that would support minorities. Do you? And I just wanted to get your information on that.
Wait a minute. I didn't quite get that question.
Okay. Could you repeat that, caller?
Yes, sir, Mr. Fuller. I said, but any changes that would take place in America would have to come through changing of the laws, and that would involve the Supreme Court. And since they have lifetime appointments, my figuring is that they have lifetime appointments so that they could keep everything going, quote unquote, smooth. So my question to you, sir, is that do you always see that as being a detriment to any progress? Because I don't see them changing any laws that would benefit people of color in the United States.
Okay.
Okay, law is whatever people do. And where the real problem of racism is with the ordinary, everyday white people that you interact with, if you do interact with any white people, and you're a person of color, each and every day. That's where the first laws are made. If your interaction with the average white person produces a constructive result, that's what you want. And without even thinking about any so-called Supreme Court, the Supreme Court is a system of white supremacy. It's not 9 judges sitting on some seat somewhere. They wait for people to give them signals about what to do. Now, who are the people that give them the signals? Just the ordinary white person that's out here that you encounter every day in many places on the planet. Now, make all those encounters of constructive value, and that's it. The system of white supremacy has been replaced with justice. We're going to have to get on some kind of page with white people. All of this talking among ourselves or talking about what the Supreme Court should do or what the next black president 50 years from now should do, no. You've got to get an understanding with the average white person that you pass on the street every day. And right now, we don't have an understanding. We're playing games with each other.
Okay.
And we need to face up to that. What is on his mind or her mind? I'm talking about the ordinary white person. And find out what they like and what they dislike and get them to be honest. That's the main thing.
Yes, sir.
Because a lot of white people are not honest when they talk to black people.
Okay, well, looks like we're out of show, so call again next week and we can answer your other questions. Hey, look, if you people would like to have this hour extended, contact Ed Dozier, Program/Operating Manager. If enough people do that, maybe we can go an extra hour because we certainly have more calls to go. Anyway, Talktainmentradio.com, the world's greatest radio, the way radio should be heard. You have been listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. We'll see you next week. Thank you, Mr. Fuller, and thank you, callers.
Greatest radio.
The most important question in all racial matters is why. One should always ask it.
Radio, the way it should be heard.